This is Sales Players, and I'm your host, Jesse Woodbury. I've spent my career selling for early stage companies, and now I'm on a mission to help reps and operators find tips, strategies, and resources for generating more pipeline, closing more deals, and building wealth in tech sales. To learn more, visit salesplayers.co. All right, we're live. What's up, Sales Players? It's Jesse here. And in this episode, I'm going to share a hot take that I have in regards to the topic of work from home versus working in an office versus hybrid roles. And the reason I want to talk about this is because lately I've been going through a bunch of different coaching sessions. I've been talking to lots of folks that I work with in the industry. And of course, there is a lot of dialogue right now about return to office and more roles being focused in an office versus being remote. And frankly, how competitive it is to work in a remote tech sales role. Now, I realize that you might think I'm a hypocrite because I've worked from home now since 2019 fully, but I do want to talk about the importance of being in an office in your first couple years, maybe even your first 5 years in tech sales, because that's what I did. I honestly didn't start out working remotely, and I'm really glad that I didn't because I got exposed to some people and some principles and lessons that I would not have been able to pick up had I been a fully remote employee for my entire career. So again, I understand the benefits of remote work. I personally really enjoy being able to work out of a home office and get outside sometimes on my lunch break and get some sunshine. There is a ton of perks. I don't have a commute. I get to make coffee and food at home. And there's a lot of benefits to being fully remote. And I definitely think it's something that everyone should work up to for the right point in their career. However, if you're out there listening and you're new to the business or you're in your first couple months or years of being in tech sales, maybe you're an SDR, maybe you're an inside sales representative, and right now you're working remotely, pay attention because I think this might be at least food for thought. And I'm not going to try to convince you. I obviously don't want to come across as some kind of corporate bootlicker or something like that. I know a lot of leadership wants you to come into the office so they can have that span of control over you. I get that. But look at it from this perspective. When you're early on and you're trying to learn the art form that is tech sales, things like negotiating and prospecting and making a good cold call or writing a really good cold email, sometimes it can be a very helpful thing to be in person in an office, sitting next to peers who are doing the exact same thing as you, where you can collaborate in real time, where you can overhear the cold calls that your peers are making. And then the other element too is getting FaceTime with senior leadership within your company, because it's a really important way to build your network and your Rolodex is to actually have connections that are senior leaders in different companies. Those are folks that you can follow to other companies and continue to work for. And that's something that I've been able to do a few times in my career. I was talking to a coaching client earlier today, and I was telling him how I was so fortunate because when I was working in an office, when I lived in Texas, the CEO of the company sat about 15 feet away from where I sat. So as an SDR in a startup company, having the CEO sit really close by opened up a ton of amazing opportunities for mentorship that I wouldn't have had I been a fully remote employee and only joined that CEO on Zoom calls or something like that. It was really cool to just be hanging around the office during the day. And sometimes that CEO would invite me to join him on strategic sales discussions. On at least one occasion, he invited me to listen to him try to raise capital for the business, which again, that's stuff that even if I were to go to an MBA program, I probably couldn't learn as much about operations and business as I did just sitting closely to someone who was out fundraising, closing strategic enterprise deals, and building a startup. So I really cherished that opportunity that I had to be in person every single day and to make some connections and friends in the office, and of course, develop some mentors that allowed me to have access to things that, again, I don't think I would have access to as a fully remote employee. Another example is a few years after that, I was at another early stage startup in Austin, and I was invited to attend the board meeting. Even though I wasn't a leader in the company, it was a really cool experience to be able to sit and listen to how our investors were thinking about the growth of the company and what types of information they wanted, how the presentations went, and what the leadership's plan was for success. And again, I couldn't have necessarily been invited to that had I been a fully remote employee. I would likely not have been able to attend a board meeting. It was really because I was in the office and I showed interest and curiosity around that the founders decided to let me be part of that. So those are just a few examples. Most of the mentors that I've had in my career that have been very impactful were people that I sat next to or worked in the same office as them and had chances to go get coffee and lunch and really interact in person. I still try to do that as a remote employee, and I still try to network and connect with people, but it just isn't quite the same over a Zoom call as it is when you're working in an office, especially like on a Friday afternoon when you can crack open a cold beer and talk about your goals, talk about the trajectory of the company, pick the brains of the leaders that work around you, and spend time really getting real-time coaching and audibles from the people you work with. So again, this is meant to be food for thought. I totally get why remote is so sought after and so desired. It is a really awesome opportunity. But I do think if you're in the early stages of your career, you should consider taking a role in the office for a few years while you develop your skill set, learn to level up, learn to make connections, and get mentorship from people in person. And then from there, you can work on finding the right remote opportunity and go on and do the next thing. So again, just some food for thought. Consider taking a role in person because of the learning and the impact that it will have on your career. And it will actually make you a better remote employee because you'll end up appreciating every day that you have working from a home office later on in your career once you've developed the skills and the autonomy to do that. Thanks for listening. Hope that was helpful. And until next time.